Hey, Kaza family, Kaza Investor Network here with today's flip file on insulation. We're at a new construction property here in Fairfax County that's been insulated and is just about ready for drywall. And just a couple things to check and to know about when you are insulating that your contractor should be getting correct and your inspector should also be checking, but you should know yourself as the investor owner of your projects how these things should be. So the things that we're looking at here in a house that's being or has been insulated are the R values and proper placement of the insulation in the ceilings and walls. R value is how you measure the amount of temperature resistance or thermal protection provided by your insulation, and it's measured in numbers that come after the R on your insulation, and how much you need is largely determined by code, especially in this case for new construction, or if you're doing an addition or even a major renovation where you're taking down any walls or putting up any new walls. You'll likely have to re-insulate those walls, especially if they're on the outside. You must insulate those walls and you have to bring them to the current code. So here where we are in Fairfax County, the current code is an R value of at least R15 on walls and R38 in ceilings, and I think R10 between floors. But your wood provides a certain amount of R value, by the way. Cinder block walls and basements and foundations provide a certain amount of R value. Windows and doors have an R value, but for whatever reason they call that a U value. So windows have a certain U rating for them as far as their energy efficiency goes. It's probably on that little energy performance sticker there. And there is a minimum for those as well in the county, but I think you're going to be hard pressed to find any reputable window supplier that's supplying windows that don't meet the minimum code. Most of the time they're much, much better than the code requires. So not so much to pay attention to there, but for your wall insulation you do, and there's a few different kinds of wall insulation. You may see or hear houses that are being built or advertised as green. Oftentimes use spray insulation where it gets sprayed into these wall cavities and it kind of fills up. And then you kind of scrape it flat for the drywall, and that provides a good amount of insulation. This house is using traditional rolled insulation, which has the fuzzy stuff on the back side of the paper. Well, I'll show you the fuzzy stuff in a second, and it'll have its R value printed on it. So if I look at this piece right here, turn the camera a little bit sideways, you'll see that says R19. As I mentioned, R15 is the minimum, and R15 insulation has a thickness a little bit thinner than R19, meant for 2x4 walls. This house was framed with 2x6 walls, so we have a slightly deeper cavity. Went ahead and used the deeper, thicker R19 insulation to properly fill that cavity, and also obviously provides a slightly nicer, higher level of insulative value. So this house hopefully then stays just that little bit warmer in the wintertime and a little bit cooler in the summer, keeping the conditioned air inside the house. So R19 is what we've got here in the walls, and if we can find something here in the ceiling, it looks the same, the paper's the same, but if we find a piece there to zoom in on, you'll see that's R38. That is a thicker bat of insulation, providing the R38 level of insulation in the ceiling where it's required. Notice we don't have any across the rest of the ceiling. That all will need to be insulated as well, but the plan for that is to hang drywall and then use blown insulation in the ceiling area. That's where it just basically looks like tufts of cotton. You blow it in with a giant tube up to, again, a minimum thickness that you measure with a ruler to make sure that you have the appropriate R value there. And that's typically how you get it up in the attic, although you can also put rolled insulation in the attic as well. And you can also, again, in those fancier greenhouses, use the spray insulation up in the rafters and ceiling joists and spray it into the underside of the roof. Again, here the plan is to use the rolled insulation. Another bit about ceiling insulation, if you'll see up there in the corners, that's called a baffle. And what that does is it provides an air gap between where your insulation either is, right here where it's rolled, or where it will be once we get it blown in there, provides an air gap between that corner of the roof, the underside of the roof deck, and the eave on the outside of the house, which I don't know if we may or may not be able to see through one of these windows, but the eaves have a vent. I don't know if you can see that vent there on the underside of the roof. That vent allows the roof to breathe properly. There should also be a ridge vent. That's not super easy to see, but it's that black line there, kind of visible at the very top of the roof. That allows air to get in through the bottom of the eave, escape out through the top, and provides proper circulation to your attic area so it doesn't overheat in the summertime, which is extremely bad for your roof. But in order for that to work properly, you can't cover up those vents on the outside, so that's what this baffling is for. It's to keep that insulation. There's a different kind of it there. And over here, it keeps that insulation from blocking those vents, so you need to make sure that that is in place before the insulation goes in, and certainly before you do the blown insulation up in the attic. In here in a bathroom, this is obviously a shower area where they've torn the paper backing off of the insulation. The theory is if water gets behind it, you don't want it collecting on the kind of waxy paper backing and then pooling down and running down the bottom. You'd rather have it be absorbed by the insulation. I don't know about that, but that's apparently what gets done. But that's what you see here with the backing removed. You then get the Durock cement board over top of that, which also has a good R value associated with it. That's as high or higher than obviously any piece of paper on the front of that insulation. So you're kind of covered with some of that. You will also oftentimes now in modern homes see spray insulation in some places. So like in gaps or around windows, sealing in the window. If you have gaps that are large enough that you can't necessarily get spray to stick, I don't know if you can see, we've actually got some insulation shoved into that gap between those two 2x4s over here in the corner. You want every single gap to be filled with something. Spray insulation around windows, bat or blown, or spray insulation in the wall cavities. And then you'll have a different kind of insulation in penetrations through the floor. Anywhere there is a penetration in the floor for a pipe or a wire, a tube, an opening, or anything that's going to be behind a wall somewhere needs to have fire stop insulation. You can use the rolled stuff, or you can use the spray. The spray is a lot easier, so most everybody now uses the spray. You'll notice that it is orange to indicate that it is the fire stop insulation. Your inspectors will want to see that. It makes life a lot easier just to use the orange stuff, and it looks like this. So we have here the gap and crack stuff that's yellow. That's stuff that you'll use here on outside walls, around windows, doors, and on the outside, that kind of thing. And then you have fire block spray insulation stuff. That's the orange stuff that you squirt into the holes here. Again, anywhere you have a penetration in the floor that you want to stop fire going from one floor to another, in between the living levels, you need to have that fire stop insulation. So make sure that you're getting the proper stuff squeezed, rolled, squirted, or blown in the proper places. And these are the kind of things that you definitely want to check before you go to drywall, because again, a competent contractor should be doing it properly, and a competent inspector will likely catch it, but you don't want to depend on that. You want to make sure that all these things are being done correctly, because you probably paid for it. So make sure you're getting what you paid for, and make sure things are getting done right. And that is your insulative minute. Hope it keeps you warm or cold in the winter or summer. And in the meantime, you want to figure out how any of the rest of that type of thing works, give us a call. Send us an email. Give us a shout, or come and catch us at one of our Casa Investor Network events, or find us on CasaInvestorNetwork.com. Love to chat with you and talk about your business. It's why we're here. So that's it for this one. We'll catch you the next time. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.